Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or whatever time it may be for you. I want to talk about how to handle triggers while healing. I shared this with a group previously, and I said this is some valuable information I want to share with the world. Here we go. These are things that we're gonna cover, and I'm gonna cover in this video today: understanding triggers, the common types of triggers, self-awareness, recognizing your triggers, the impact triggers has on healing, and emotion regulation, managing reactions, also cognitive reframing, changing your perspective, creating a trigger response plan, okay? Boundaries and support systems. Healing is a journey, not a destination. And I know I got Q&A for closing thoughts, but I can also do that if you just post your comments or questions in the chat. I can do that there. Like I said, this was a something I shared with a group, and that's why it's in this format. So, understanding triggers. What are triggers? Triggers are stimuli that provoke a strong emotional reaction. These reactions are often tied to past experiences, trauma, or deeply held emotions. Commonly, triggers can arise from a word, a situation, or a person, or even a smell or a sound that reminds someone of past hurt. Why do triggers happen? They're survival mechanisms. Our brain has a natural tendency to protect us from harm, and triggers are part of this protective mechanism. When we experience something similar to a past trauma or pain, our brain activates a warning system: fight, flight, or freeze responses. Triggers are often led to this instinctual reaction, even if the current situation isn't as dangerous as the past one. How the brain reacts to triggers. When triggered, the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, takes over, and rational thinking is often bypassed. This leads to intense emotional responses, cognitive hijacking. When triggered, the rational part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is hijacked by emotional brain, leading the rational part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is hijacked by the emotional brain, leading the impulsive reactions rather than thoughtful responses. The connection between triggers and past traumas. Triggers are often linked to unhealed wounds or past experiences that haven't been fully processed. When a similar situation arises, it can bring up unresolved emotions, intensifying the reaction. Healing means recognizing these patterns, acknowledging the emotions, working through them, noticing early signs of being triggered. Pay attention to early warning signs such as physical tension, racing thoughts, or sudden shift in mood. These can be clues that you are starting to become triggered. Okay, so when you start feeling these things, you could be triggered. The different types of triggers. Triggers can vary wide, triggers can vary widely from person to person based on your individual experiences. Most general fall into three broad categories: emotional, situational, sensory triggers. Emotional triggers. So the definition: emotional triggers occurs when certain feelings or emotions are activated by external or internal factors. Examples: feeling rejected or abandoned in relationships can trigger sadness or anxiety. Criticism may provoke feelings of inadequacy or anger. The impact. These emotional responses often stem from past experiences where those same emotions were felt intensely, often in unresolved situations. And then there's situational triggers. These occur when specific situations or environment bring back memories of past trauma or stress. Examples: walking into a room where a past conflict happened can trigger anxiety. Being around people or places associated with previous negative experiences. The impact situational triggers are powerful because they place you directly back into the context that reminds you of the past experience, often without warning. Then you have the sensory triggers. Sensory triggers often happens when your senses, such as sight, sound, or smell, or taste, or touch, evoke memories of emotions tied to the past experiences. For example, a particular scent like perfume might remind you of a person who hurt you. A specific sound like yelling or loud noises can provoke feelings of fear and panic. So we have sensory triggers are often involuntary and can be extremely intense because they bypass the conscious thought and immediately elicit emotional reactions. Triggers in everyday life. Triggers can appear in everyday activities and interactions, often unexpectedly. Knowing the types helps to recognize them when they happen. Triggers may be intense and triggers may vary intensity, but acknowledging them is the first step in managing them. So there's a story that someone shared with me. This child was in the classroom, and every time your child was in the classroom with the teacher, the child would always act up. But come to find out, the teacher wore a cologne that the person who assaulted this child used to wear. So that smelling that cologne, this person was triggered and didn't even know it. So it can be as simple. It can be not even as simple. It can be just like that, right? You smell something that reminds you of that your offender. Okay. So that's just an example. And for me, when it comes to people yelling and up in my face, that remind me of abuse I saw my parent experience. So people yelling in my face, that's something that I don't like. Don't get close. Don't be yelling in my face. That was a trigger for me because it reminded me of a previous experience that I witnessed. Okay. And then we have self-awareness, recognizing your triggers. Okay, so self-awareness is the foundation of healing. It's the process of becoming conscious of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, especially when you're triggered. Without recognizing triggers, it's hard to manage them. Self-awareness allows you to take control rather than react impulsively. So, steps to recognizing your triggers: pay attention to patterns, reflect on situations where you were strong, where you had a strong emotional response reaction. These events, people, environments were present. Okay, these reoccurring patterns can identify triggers. Notice physical reactions. Emotional triggers often come with physical signs. Okay, watch for signs like racing heart, tightness in the chest, sweating, or tension in your body. Then you want to track your emotional shifts. Keep a journal of situations where you had certain mood changes occur. This helps identify what sets off the emotional response. Okay. Mindfulness and reflection. Mindfulness practices stay present in the moment can help you catch your triggers early. When you feel triggered, you can pause, observe, and assess without immediate reaction. Reflection. After the fact, reflect on the day and consider if you were triggered at any point. What happened? How did you feel? Those reflections build greater awareness over time. The role of emotions in self-awareness. Emotions act as guides to our triggers. For example, certain anger may point to feeling disrespected, while anxiety may suggest fear, being judged, or rejected. By understanding what emotions come up during the triggers, you can better identify the root causes. Building a self-awareness routine. Daily check-ins. Doing a regular emotional check-in throughout the day and ask, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? This can increase your awareness of emotional shifts and potential triggers. Okay. Listening to feedback. Sometimes others notice your triggers before you do. Encourage openness to feedback from trusted people. Okay. And patterns they may observe. Awareness is the first step towards healing. Recognizing triggers is the first step towards managing them. Self-awareness leads to choice, and choice leads to empowered healing. So next we have the impact of triggers on healing. Triggers are disruptors of the healing process. Triggers can disrupt emotional healing by bringing up unresolved feelings and past trauma. Even when someone is making progress in their healing journey, a trigger may cause them to feel as if they're back to square one. Emotional reactions and setbacks. Strong emotional responses. Triggers often lead to intense emotional reactions such as anger, sadness, fear, or shame. These emotions can overwhelm the individual and making it difficult to stay grounded and continue healing. Setbacks in healing. While setbacks are common, it's important to recognize them as part of the process rather than failure. Triggers may slow the progress, but do not erase it. Physical reactions to triggers. Triggers don't just affect your emotions, they also have physical consequences. Common reactions include increased heart rate, muscle tension, and even nausea. These physical responses are tied to the body's fight flight system, which activates when someone feels emotionally threatened. Triggers and the emotional roller coaster. Triggers can make people feel like they're like they're on an emotional roller coaster with intense highs and lows. The instability can make healing seem difficult or unachievable. Acknowledge the part of healing is learning how to navigate the emotional turbulence. Triggers and avoidance behaviors. When someone is repeatedly triggered, they might begin avoiding situations, people, or environments that remind them of the past. This avoidance can limit personal growth and opportunities for healing. While avoiding triggers might feel like relief in the short term, it can prevent the person from confronting and processing the emotions they need to heal. Healing through triggers. While triggers feel overwhelming, they can be opportunities for healing. When someone becomes aware of their triggers, they can gain insight into unresolved areas of their lives. And I want to encourage you to see your triggers as a signal that I want you to, excuse me, let me say this again. I want to encourage you to see your triggers as a signal for what still needs healing rather than something to avoid. Okay, you got to feel it to heal it. Okay, you got to touch it too, right? Growth through self-compassion. Experiencing triggers does not mean that healing has failed. Self-compassion is crucial in these moments, allowing the individual to continue healing without judgment or shame. Healing is about progress, not perfection. Triggers are a part of the journey. So next up, cognitive reframing, changing your perspective. This is so important. I think this is my most favorite slide on this presentation. So what is cognitive reframing? Cognitive reframing is a psychological strategy that involves changing the way we interpret situations, thoughts, or emotions. It helps shift our perspective from negative or unhelpful thoughts to more balanced and constructive ones. This process allows us to reduce the emotional intensity of our triggers and respond in a healthier way. How triggers shapes our thoughts. When triggered, we often engage in automatic negative thinking, assuming the worst about ourselves or the situation. Triggers activate old beliefs such as I'm not good enough or I can't trust anyone, which influence how we react emotionally. Cognitive reframing changes these automatic thoughts by providing new, more positive interpretations. Steps to reframe your thoughts. So you want to, step one, identify the triggered thought. Ask yourself, what thought immediately comes to mind when I'm triggered? The awareness is the first step of reframing. Step two, challenge the thought. Question the validity of the thought. Is it based on facts, assumptions, or reflection of the past? Or is it tied to a past experience? Step three, replace the thought, find more balanced thought, replace the thought, find a more balanced or positive thought to replace the negative one. For example, I always fail. So you can change that. I'm still learning and it's okay if I make mistakes. Examples of reframing triggered thoughts. Example one, after being criticized, you might think I'm worthless. Reframe it to, this is one person's opinion and it doesn't define my worth. Example two, if a place reminds you of past trauma, instead of thinking I'm not safe here, try this. This is a different situation and I'm in control now. The role of perspective in healing. The way we interpret our triggers plays a significant role on how we heal. By changing the perspective, we give ourselves room to grow rather than staying stuck in old patterns. In old patterns. Reframing doesn't deny or invalidate our emotions, but rather help us see situations more clearly with less emotional weight. Using reframing to gain empowerment. Cognitive reframing helps shift from the victim mentality to empowered mindset. Instead of feeling helpless in the face of a trigger, reframing shows us to gain control of our thoughts and our emotions. It gives us power to change how we react. In turn, it helps us heal. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT techniques. Cognitive reframing is a key tool in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a proven approach to managing emotional reactions and changing the thought pattern. Explore the CBT techniques such as thought records, where you can write down your negative thoughts and challenge them, and practice reframing regularly. Okay. Practice makes progress. Cognitive reframing takes time and practice. Start small by reframing minor triggers and gradually working up to more challenging situations. The more you practice reframing, the more naturally it'll come during those emotionally charged moments. So next up, creating a trigger response plan. This is key. Why have a trigger response plan? A trigger response plan is a proactive strategy to manage emotional reactions when they arise. It gives structure to how you deal with triggers, reducing the intensity of the emotional response and helping you regain control. Having a plan in place helps you avoid impulsive reactions and promote a more thoughtful, balanced approach to handling triggering situations. Step 1, identify common triggers. The first step is creating a plan to identify personal triggers, reflect on situations, people, places, or sensory experiences that typically cause you distress. Keeping a journal or a log of triggered moments can help you in tracking the patterns and pinpointing specific triggers. Okay. Step 2, develop calming techniques. Grounding techniques is simple as a simple exercise as 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's 5 things you can see, touch, or etc. Bring the person back in the present moment. So this brings you back into the present moment. Okay. Breathing exercises. You breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Okay. This calms the body's physical reaction to being triggered. Visualization is using mental imagery, like picturing a safe place or a peaceful scene to create a sense of calm during a triggered moment. Okay. You want to create step 3, create a pause response. Take a pause as a response when feeling triggered. This can be as simply as saying to oneself, I need a moment, and stepping away from the situation. This pause creates space between the trigger and the reaction, allowing time to process the emotion, event, impulsive actions. Step 4, reframe the situation. As covered in slide 7, cognitive reframing is an essential tool for the response plan. After the pause, reframe the situation by challenging the negative thoughts and finding a more balanced perspective. If someone feels attacked in a conversation, instead of reacting with anger, they might reframe the thought to, this person's comment doesn't define me. I can respond calmly. Step 5, using a support system. Know that you don't have to navigate triggers alone. Having a trusted individuals, whether friends, family, or a therapist, who you can turn to when feeling triggered is crucial. I want to suggest creating a list of people that you can contact to support you through these tough moments. Reaching out for help when overwhelmed can provide comfort and guidance. Okay. Step 6, practice self-compassion. Self-compassion throughout the process. It's okay to be triggered, and it doesn't signify failure or in your healing journey. Okay. Self-kindness and understanding will help soften the emotional responses, making it easier to move through the trigger with grace. Okay, step 7, establish healthy coping mechanisms. It is important to have healthy coping mechanisms in place, such as journaling, exercising, or engaging in hobbies that bring joy and relaxation. These activities provide constructive outlet for emotions and reduce the stress after experiencing a trigger. So you want to practice the plan regularly. Creating the plan is just the first step. The real work is practicing it regularly, even during non-triggering moments. So it becomes second nature when a trigger occurs. The more you practice your response, the more effective it'll be over time. So you want to have a plan for your trigger, because I promise you your trigger got a plan for you. And that's to take you in fight, flight, or freeze. So creating this response plan, it helps you when the trigger comes. So you can respond differently, okay? Very important. So next up, we have boundaries and support systems. Importance of boundaries, the importance of boundaries. Healthy boundaries allows you to create a safe space for yourself, reflecting of being overwhelmed triggers in certain situations. Boundaries help others understand what and not anticipate their interactions with you. Fostering respect and reflecting positive conflicts. Okay, so types of boundaries. So you have emotional boundaries. This involves practicing your emotional well-being. Physical boundaries include maintaining control over personal space. Then you have boundaries. Boundaries provide a buffer against the trigger situations by giving the power to control how much exposure you allow to certain people, places, or circumstances. So setting boundaries with loved ones and colleagues reduce the chances of re-injuring harmful dynamics, okay, that may occur, dynamics that may trigger past emotional trauma. Communicating boundaries. It is important to communicate your boundaries. I need some time alone to process this. I'm not comfortable discussing this topic right now. So these are some responses you can have, when you are setting those boundaries. And do know that boundaries does not need anyone's approval. Okay. So I think I'm going to end right there with that, because boundaries is just something you do to protect yourself and the relationship. So next we have healing is a journey, not a destination. So you want to make sure that you're practicing self-care, and I like to say soul care as well, because self-care, although self-care is about pampering, taking care of your personal need, but soul care is a deeper level. Soul care is about, I can't do a face mask or a bubble bath if I am experiencing grief, right? If I'm processing grief, if I am grieving. So just be mindful of that when it comes to, self-care. Self-care, we know what self-care are. It's just taking care of ourselves in the present moment, taking time for ourselves to nurture ourselves and love on ourselves. And soul care is taking care of the soul, the mind, will, the body, and the emotions. And those are two different things. So it's very important to take care of yourself as far as self-care and soul care. Give yourself what you need. And self-care is not just this one day thing. It's every day, right? One of my routines for my soul care strategy is walking outside in nature. That helps calm me, that helps ground me, that gives me it just opens up my creativity. So that's something that I do for me. Something else I do, soul care, is also reading your Bible, okay? Soul care is taking care of you, your soul, your mind, will, and emotions. So whatever that looks like for you, it's going to be different for everybody. So just do what works for you. Okay. Figure out what works for you, what your soul need, what you need personally, and just make sure you're nurturing that. Okay. And also boundaries are a part of self-care. Mindfulness and meditation. Okay. Take time. Sometimes I just sit and just in quietness. That's soul care and self-care. So just do what you need for you, okay? And just know that healing is a journey, not a destination. So it's continual, okay? And so right now I'm closing out. This was a lot of information I've given you. So I want to stop right here. And I just want you to know that those triggers, they are the check engine light of your soul, okay? So when they occur, it's time for us to check in. A trigger is basically there was something that happened in the past that was not processed, and in that present moment, your body is remembering that time, that incident, right? So we may not be we may not know what it is. That's why we got to check in. We got to ask ourselves these questions. What am I feeling? When did I first feel like this? Right. And also, maybe you don't know what you're feeling. It's good to get the emotional wheel, and you can get that's available on Amazon. So that emotional wheel gives you the language to feelings. Like if you're feeling frustrated, that's a form of anger. If you're feeling irritated, that's a form of anger. So you get to look at what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Okay. So we got to be able to articulate what we're feeling, because feeling some kind of way is not a feeling. Okay. Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you disappointed? Are you frustrated? Are you excited? So different things. We got to be able to articulate it. Okay. So that feelings chart will help you articulate that, because there's some things that I didn't know either. So that wheel is something that I go to when I have when I'm feeling feelings and I can't articulate them. That wheel helps me. And also if I'm working with somebody else, it helps me help them. Right. So this concludes this journey, the journey of healing. And just know that it's a process, and your process is different from everybody else. Okay. Everybody's process is different. So I am complete. I don't see the chat. I don't see any questions. I will come back to this once I end it and answer any questions to the best of my ability. Yeah. So how to handle triggers while healing. I hope this was helpful. And if it is, it has been shared with somebody, because this is something that gets us every time, y'all. We be so triggered, don't even know it. All right. So going forward, we have the tools, the information, so we can process these triggers and have better responses versus reaction. You want to respond versus react, right? Okay. I am complete. You have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.